black stripes on there. And Danae, she's really good at this, and she experimented with this already. But this is a really cool technique to have an ombre underneath. That way when you're doing your scraping, I'll show you what I mean by scraping. I'm gonna take black onyx, cover that entire ombre now. Very thin. Practically everything we do is very thin. So even though this is a very thin color of black onyx, you'll see it's very black. Been shaken a couple of times. Is my head in there? I got a little bit of fuzz, so I'm just pulling my little bit of fuzz. I have cats. Too many. Anybody need cats?
My dogs.
Your dogs need cats. All right, so we have an entirely black nail layer. We have our brush, it's clean. It's not soaked in acetone or whatever, NES 99. We don't ever use acetone with any part of this process. So you'll see when I do my scraping, you get a nice line that has an ombre blended line, which is normally impossible to do if you're just going to make an ombre line, right? It's really hard.
So it's dry.
Yes. Clean your brush in between. So you'll see I wipe my brush on my little pad here. It's all cleaned up.
Did you wipe that nail off?
No.
Before you put that on?
No, it's still got the inhibition layer. Only when I want things to really stay still, because this will move very, very slightly, but this process is so quick and so easy to do these little stripes that I don't have to worry about it moving that much. One thing, you never want to wipe the inhibition layer off a ombre nail. It no longer becomes ombre. It becomes a two-tone nail.
Right.
Because that inhibition layer does contain some color. Go ahead and cure that. And I'm going to show you guys what I mean by that inhibition layer does contain color. Because we're, like Joey said earlier, we do not need top coat for everything. You know, it's only for shine. So when you're thinking about nails that are, let's say, an example like this is an example where I have this is matte and it's shiny. So that's when the two top coats come into play, when you're using a matte top coat and the regular top coat. And sometimes you don't even need any top coat. But that only works on certain shades when, I'll just show you guys rather than talk about it. So I'll black onyx these two fingers. And a lot of times, this is the color people have the most problems with is black onyx.
Why is that?
Because it's a very dark color and you can see every imperfection in any movement. So when the gel does slightly shrink, whether it's due to your shaking, whether it's due to the temperature, you can see it right away. And I use it so much I barely have any left. But you guys are just gonna love the brush that you guys were given. My personal favorite.
How many of you do gel color nail art now? Fabulous. Excellent.
When you run into a short nail like this that's really hard to cap, put a little bit of color to the side, cap with your nail art brush. You're not going to have too much to create a big lip on the end. And you can get really tight into that free edge. Same thing with this nail. go ahead and cure. One of the things I'm going to do that's going to be really odd is I'm going to do 3 coats of black onyx. And when you're doing something that is really fine lines like this, where it's a bunch of really skinny little lines, and you do not want it to spread out, what do? Remove that inhibition layer. Then I'm not going to have to worry about my white spreading, moving, shifting. But in order to do that, it's best to have 3 thin coats. Because you end up losing some colors because some of the color is the inhibition layer.
If you do this, what Bruce,
The
I'm just
edges.
kind of going back over, if you only use 2 coats and you wipe off the inhibition layer, then what happens is it becomes kind of transparent. If you want that matte finish, so the reason why we do 3 is to make sure you get that color that you're really looking for, because you are going to pull color off, okay? And also remember, dark colors you can matte, like so, but you cannot with light colors. And that's why we have our matte top coat, because you can matte anything, and then you don't need that 3rd layer.
Yeah, with the matte top coat, after the 2nd layer, I would be able to just put matte top coat on, and it would be matte. But the lighter, like Joey said, with the light colors, they're not going to become matte. Like that pink on the French nail, when I wiped it, it still had a little bit of a shine to it. It didn't become matte like what you're about to see. Always clean the brush with NES 99. Don't need to use anything else. And always twisting in one direction. You don't need to go back and forth and flare out, make the hairs flare out. So I'm going to put on my 3rd coat here. I always like doing the thin coats much better than 2 thick coats. I'd rather have thin coats anyway.
It's amazing how well dark colors look on short nails.
Not too many people are wearing really long nails anymore, but I think it will be coming back. I saw some really beautiful nails down here. Great. Stiletto nails down there.
Don't make my head any bigger than it is.
It's not a bad.
Have you noticed the celebrities? You know, at the, like at Emmys and Oscars and so forth, they're wearing like a designer nail,
Yeah.
you know, one nail, or they're doing a lot of nail art. So it's very big.
Once again, take an Expert Touch wipe, saturate it with your NES 99. And when I wipe this nail, you're going to see a lot of my color comes off. But then the nail is going to be completely matte. I won't have to worry about anything moving around on me. See the white? So you'll see here,
I always thought
it is white. Now it's matte.
Can you see how it mattes?
Okay, now, for me to do a matte and shiny design, all I would do now is do my design with the top coat.
You know what I find though is that when I do that, when I do the top, the art in the top coat and have the matte finish, when they come back, their matte finish is shiny.
Yeah, you know why? Because of their oils.
Yeah.
All
and
you
it's
have to do is
like
tell them to
something
wipe it in
like
between with alcohol.
Oh,
NES 99 is the best for that.
okay. Because they're like, my design's gone. I'm sorry.
No, they just have to take NES 99 and wipe their nail, and it's going to come right back to its
Okay,
original
good to know.
mattness.
A little bit of
Even after a few weeks. Like you'll see here on some of my palettes here, they're kind of matte, right?
Right.
But all I need to do is wipe my oils on there, and it's going to be shinier than over here. All I would need to do, wipe it with NES 99, is all the oils are gone. That's what's making that shine.
Yeah, makeup and oil and,
Even
you know.
the matte top coat.
It will. Absolutely, it will. Any matte, anything that's matte, and then you go and you add oils or lotions and stuff, it will shine. But if they could just clean it back off again, you know, even alcohol will work.
Yeah.
Regular alcohol, this is 30%. You might have to clean it 2 or 3 times because its concentration is a lot lower, but it'll still work. Sometimes when people don't have a shine on their top coat, it's because the alcohol they're using is not strong enough.
Yeah, if you try to remove the surface residue with just 70% isopropyl alcohol, just that you can get in the market, whatever, that's a problem because it's 30% water. So in some cases it will look like it's not cured because it's kind of sticky. So that's the reason.
So I'm going to also show you guys how to do those little twirly lines, like the paisley type pattern. And when you're doing that, don't try to do it all in one motion. It's just too difficult, too hard to do. Do it in little stages and do what's comfortable for your wrist movement. Before I got into doing nails, I was a tattoo artist for many years. And the guy that I worked with, he taught me, always do what you're comfortable with. Don't try to go out of your comfort range. And so I brought that into doing nails. And so you'll see what I'm comfortable with is a downward motion. And so I use that for all my twirly lines like this. I do a downward motion, I stop. I go on the other side and do a downward motion on the other side and connect it. And I end up doing that all the way around. I'll go in here, do a downward motion, I'll do a downward motion for that part too. And so just do what you're comfortable with, but don't try to do that whole thing all in one motion. So stick with what is comfortable for you. Yeah, it's because it's switching all these angles too. It's going into all these angles. It's really difficult. Some people can do it, but it's not going to look the same. I can even go back in here and I will stretch that out. Even use this brusher as a dotting tool.
Do you see how many uses you can get out of that brush? It can be very fine detail, or it can be like the ombre. It can be very large areas you can cover.
All about the pressure. You know, I'm barely touching it. If I press down hard, you'll see my lines are not going to be clean. I'm just barely touching these nails. I always like to do like something in between the gaps here.
I see. Pretty soon we'll get that potty break in, okay? After he finishes these 2 nails, we'll take a little break.
Yeah, that sounds good.
He's funny. He is funny. He's enjoyable to watch.
And feel free to bring your cameras up, take pictures of his art during the break, okay?
I think we can go ahead and cure that.
We'll have our model walk around too.
Off top coat, Jim. He's your left-handed. Are you left-handed? Are you?
Take somebody in the bathroom with you.
Exactly.
Or what I can do is put a little thin coat of bubble bath on there so you can actually use your hands. You already sure? So we're going to go ahead and top coat these nails. Will we top coat this matte nail?
No.
No. We don't want to lose the matte.
Or you can matte coat it.
Yeah.